السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده سبحانه ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وما قل وكفى خير مما كثر وألهى وإنما توعدون لآت وما أنتم بمعجزين. All the praise due to Allah. We praise Him and we seek His assistance and guidance and forgiveness. Whomsoever Allah guides, there is no one could misguide, and whomsoever Allah misguides, there is no one could guide. And I testify that there is no God but Allah, and I further testify that Muhammad is His servant and messenger. We ask you, O Allah, to send your peace and your blessing upon the messenger, as well as his household and companions, like you sent upon Prophet Abraham and his household and companions. To proceed, dear brothers and sisters, next Tuesday will be the beginning of the month of February 2022. And in this month, it is recognized in the United States as the Black History Month. The Black History Month. Because the 1863 Emancipation Proclamation by President Abraham Lincoln to end the system of slavery took effect in this month in 1863. And so they commemorate this by making this month, the whole month of February, as the Black History Month. And dear brothers and sisters, we have been talking about history, if you remember, since the past two khutbahs, talking about the importance of knowing the history, especially for our youngest generations, for our youngsters, who oftentimes hide their identity because of the embarrassment to show their identity as being a Muslim. And we know, and I told you, I brought many examples here, I will continue to bring the example. This is history. This is history, and when I tend to bring these examples, I bring them from Western sources. You remember the example I brought you that the US used to pay taxes to the Ottomans at the beginning of the 20th century. Go to history, that this is Western sources. That we have that extensively in the Islamic sources, but go to the Western sources, you will find this clearly stated there. For the brothers and sisters, knowing the history of African Americans, it is essential to know the history of Islam in America. Because a lot of people, maybe here, maybe somewhere else, thinking that Islam was brought to America by immigrants. But the wave of immigrants, maybe our parents, our grandparents who came here and gave birth during the 60s and 70s. And this is how Islam came. Islam is not an imported religion. In fact, if you look at Western sources also, it was believed that Columbus himself, one of his deputies, that they had books and scrolls, was believed to be drawn by Portuguese Muslims. That's exactly the word that they used, Moors. Moors, this is how the Muslims were called in Europe, referring to Morocco, Moors, M-O-O-R-S. Was drawn by Moors, who navigated their ways to the land here in the 12th century, 3 centuries before Columbus landed here. This book was drawn by Portuguese, but that's exactly what it says in the source. But let's just bypass that and go forward. There's something that the history cannot deny, which is black people were brought to America as slaves from the 13th century, from the 15th and the 16th centuries till the 19th centuries, from the 1500s until the 1800s. 20%, at least 15 to 20% of them were Muslims. And that made the first seed of Islam in America. This is how old Islam is in this country. And we know from this, from the diaries of the slave owners themselves, in the Library of the Congress, the biggest library in the world. The Library of the Congress. All the diaries of the slave owners is now digitalized. You can access it yourself. What the slave owners used to say, I would prefer to have Muhammad slaves because they don't get drunk, as opposed to other slaves. And they used to celebrate Eid and give away, and someone's name was Umar ibn Sa'id. Go ahead and Google this name. One of the oldest slaves. His picture and his diary exists in the Library of the Congress today. And he used to say how he was brought here from West Africa in the 1800s as a Muslim. And then he was forced to change his religion later on. That was Umar ibn Sa'id. Umar ibn Sa'id. This was the history of Muslims as they have been brought here since the 1500s, the 1800s, in the waves of the slavery. 1863, President Abraham Lincoln announced the official abolishment of the slavery system. That's why this month is labeled as the Black History Month. Dear brothers and sisters, this was the first seed, as I said, although we believe that there was something started before that, but we're not going to go into that. We've taken the African American history to detect the beginning of Islam in America. And into the beginning of the 20th century, some movements arose. Like one of the movements called the Moorist Science Temple in 1913. And later on in the 1920s, one of the most famous movements of Islam that arose in America, which is called NOI, the Nation of Islam. They started around the 1920s. They started around the 1920s. 1930s and 1940s, someone took over the leadership of the nation of Islam. His name was Elijah Muhammad. Although the theology, we disagree with the theology and the belief and the creed of this movement, but to them, any movement that carries the name of Islam to the African American people at that time was something so motivating to them. Because they knew that the religion out there is not the religion of the ancestors. The religion out there, that's not the same religion that their forefathers used to adhere to. That's why anything that carries the name of Islam, and although their theologies was not matching the actual theology of Islam, but they paved the way to Islam in America. They introduced the Islamic terminology of the Quran, like the names Muhammad, all those things, like the names Malik Shabazz, all those names were introduced and they paved the way to Islam in America. And all the legends who later became Muslims, that we owe them so much. And of course you may have heard of Cassius Clay, who later changed his name to Muhammad Ali. Or Malcolm X, who later changed his name to the Hajj. No one knows? Malik Shabazz. And all those figures was something that we need to know, especially for our youngsters here. Of how hard the struggle that these people made for their civil rights. And how much we owe them, thinking that we the one who brought Islam here. And at one point in time, the name Muhammad Ali, when he refused to be deployed in an immoral war in Vietnam, because of which they took away his boxing license. They took away his heavyweight champion title. They took away his passport. He cannot travel abroad and fight. But he took the challenge. And he said, I'm not going to go thousands of miles away to fight those people. None of them ever called me the N-word. All those figures, we're very familiar with them. Those were the ones on the top, that we owe them so much. I'm talking about someone that I have met personally. I want to bring his story to you. When I used to live in Cleveland, there was a mosque there called the First Cleveland Mosque. The First Cleveland Mosque. By definition, when you hear the name of this mosque, it means that this was the first mosque existed in Cleveland. And it was. But when you get to know the people who established this mosque and started this mosque, you will also know that this is the first mosque in Cleveland and the second mosque in the U.S. The second mosque in the whole U.S. and the first one in Cleveland. The Imam of this mosque, who first started this mosque, his name was Al-Hajj Akram, Wali Akram. He was born in 1904 in Texas. Embraced Islam in 1920. Established this mosque in 1930. His grandson is the Imam that I'm still in touch with him until this day. Imam Abbas Ahmed. His grandson is the Imam. And this mosque for the African American community since the time it was established until today. From this mosque, there was a man called, may Allah give him long life, inshallah. His name is Idris, an African American brother, towards the end, in his late 70s. Wallahi, brothers, we used to sit with this brother, tell you everything about Islam that you need to know, the history of Islam in America. And he converted to Islam before Muhammad Ali. He converted to Islam before Malcolm X. Before that, the peak of the Nation of Islam. The peak of the Nation of Islam was in the 60s, when they had more than 1 million followers. Before that, he embraced Islam. He was telling us how he was treated when he was a young man, as a black person. Wallahi, too much so that he thought his first name was the N-word. Of how many times people called him in the street. He thought that was his first name. Even cops would call him that. At one time he said he was pulled over after he became a Muslim. He was pulled over. And he was one of the people who drove when they were very young. It was very strange to feel a young black Muslim, a young black person, driving. He was pulled over just for the fact that he was black. Talking about 1960s. They pulled him to the side of his vehicle, put his face on the back of the vehicle, start beating him up for no reason. That was his narrative. He's screaming. He said, "Why are you beating me? Why are you hitting me?" And then two cops are doing that. And the third is watching. He said to him, "Take it like a man," inward. Take the beating like a man, inward. Take the beating like a man. And then they let him and they drove away. Thankfully today we have, when that happens, we have cameras. People take that in camera, like what happened in the incident of George Floyd. Back then, there was no such a thing called cell phones. And he would tell you everything that you need to know. And how the struggle that he had, as a black person, and as a Muslim. The fact that we do not know, dear brothers and sisters, the fact that our younger generation doesn't know, is that had it not been for the struggle of those people, until now, you would have seen signs that says white only, or black only, and you would obey the signs, had it not been for their struggle for civil rights. The immigrants who came here from Egypt, from Jordan, from Palestine, from Saudi Arabia, from India, from Pakistan, we're not white enough, are we? No, we're not. You would have obeyed the signs that says no colors allowed, that says white only on the bathroom, had it not been for the struggle that those people went through. They fought for their civil. They didn't they didn't inherit this freedom, they earned it. They fought for it. And all those figures that we're thinking that this has no impact, it has a lot of impact on us. It has a lot of impact on us. And sometimes maybe the children or the teenagers are born here thinking they are the first generation Muslim in America. No, you're not the first generation at all. No, Islam is here before, way before your grandparents smelled the air of this world. And a lot of people's struggle paved this way to you, so you can live here freely and make fun of your parents. But sometimes some of the youth make fun of their parents because they have an accent. Had it not been for your parents who brought you here, you would have been back home barefooted. But they brought you here to live a good life. And this good life, we owe it to the people who struggled for it. So it is important to know the history. It is important to know those figures. The same person that I told you about, Muhammad Ali, whose boxing license was revoked. His passport was taken from him so he cannot travel abroad and fight. His title was taken from him. And he said the only thing that the only scenario where I can use the title is in the ring. And it was the only time that the title was taken from someone outside the ring. He was the same man, was born in Louisville, Kentucky, that today they named the airport after him. The airport of Louisville, Kentucky is named after Muhammad Ali. Today. From that time, or from that point to that point, he did not inherit all this privilege. He earned it. And he passed it down. Elijah Muhammad, the one who started the Nation of Islam, the Nation of Islam, when they started, although again, a lot of the theologies are corrupt, but we owe them because they spread the word of Islam. They didn't have mosques. And I told you the first mosque in Cleveland was 1937. Nation of Islam didn't have mosques. Nation of Islam had temples, or places where they can do public gathering, public speeches. They didn't pray. He was teaching them that. When they say Muhammad is the messenger of God, they were referring to Elijah Muhammad, not to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They fast in the month of December. That was the theology, and that's why Malcolm X broke off when he went to Hajj. Muhammad Ali broke off, and all these people broke off when they found out that this was not actually a representative of the true religion of Islam. And let's not stop here. The son of Elijah Muhammad, his name was Warith al-Din Muhammad. He was the one who corrected all the theologies of the Nation of Islam. And he appeared in one of the ICNA conventions in 1983, by the way. And all the credits of amending the theology of the Nation of Islam refer back to him. And mashallah, he did a lot of work. His grandson, Shamsuddin Muhammad, who was one of the Imams in Minnesota where he used to live before, is Masjid Noor in Minnesota, big masjid with minaret. He used to be one of the Imams there. Shamsuddin Muhammad. Another grandson, Sultan Muhammad, is Imam of the American Muslim community in Washington, and he also died. So his children, although he himself was not a true representative of the Islamic faith, but his family, they made up for that. His family, his descendants, they corrected the way of Islam. And the Islamic word, or the religion of Islam, was paved, or the way for it was paved by those people and by their struggle. And it is enough that they didn't make Islam an imported religion. Islam is not an imported religion. Islam was one of the founding religions in here. They made it to be as such. And that's why we have to honor them. And we have to talk about their struggle. They struggle for themselves. And not only the American Muslim, the African American Muslim, non-Muslims in Africa. I'm not saying the African American Muslims are the only one who did the struggle. No. And of course we all know MLK and his movement. But the African American Muslims were an integral part of this struggle. And they struggled for both their religion and their civil rights at the same time. And they were very successful. And then later in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, all the waves of the immigrants came from the Middle East and from the Far East. For the people when everything was already settled in here. When you can see no more trains that says wide only in the first car. When you can see no bathroom that says wide only. That all ended, not because of us, because of someone else that will bring in their story today. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us understanding of Allah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi, amma ba'd. Dear brothers and sisters, as I said before, this is the importance of knowing history. Just bringing hints of history that took place 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, and into the 20th and 21st century. For the people to be proud of who they are, who their ancestors were. And this is what we do here. And this is what we're going to continue on doing, inshallah, all the time. And this is the message, one of the messages of the masjid. And until this moment, if you know, the Vermont Constitution still permits slavery. And we are meeting next Tuesday in the State Senate. And I'm invited to bring the opening prayer with VIA, Vermont Interfaith Action, which we are, the Islamic Society of Vermont, a member of, are making a movement to abolish this slavery from the Vermont Constitution. Today, we're talking about 2022. Vermont still has slavery in their constitution as we speak now. That slavery is not banned in Vermont as we speak now. VIA is making a movement, and one of the movements that the VIA has made before is raising the minimum wage. And this is one of the things that we do here. Behind the scenes, a lot of people know what it is. One of the things that we are trying to end, or to put a ban in slavery, or to take away, to erase this amendment from the Vermont Constitution. We're trying to do that in what year? 2022. And the actual Emancipation Proclamation was made by Abraham Lincoln in 1863. That's why they call this month the Black History Month, right? But in the year 620 AD, or 622 AD, someone else took the podium and he said all people were equal. All people are equal. There's no difference between black and white. Except by piety and good action. All of you from Adam, and Adam is from dust. That was what year? Maybe 600, not 1863. 600 AD. Someone else took the stage and addressed publicly everyone. And he said there's no difference between white and black or black and white. And he said we're all equal, like the teeth of the comb. This is how we equal are, how equal we are. Someone else did that. I think you know his name. This is our religion. That some people say, why did not Islam abolish the slavery system? Islam did not start the slavery. The slavery was there before Islam, way before Islam. Islam fought slavery as much as it could. Put an end to the slavery. Made it a virtuous act. If you do a sin, to make up for the sin, to do what? To free slaves. Encourage people to end it. Until it ended its own. All the credit goes back to the practice of Islam that put, they shrunk the practice of slavery. That it is not banned until we speak now here in the Great Mountain State. Knowing history is very important. And so, for the youngsters who do not know or do not attend the activities of the masjid, do not come to me when your son is 16 or 17 or 13 or 14 years old telling me your son doesn't want to be a Muslim anymore. Will come to the masjid to let him know the history. To let him proud of his ancestors, of his forefathers, so he can be proud of who he is, or who she is. People look at the newspapers and I told you 1,000 times, the actual condition of the Muslims today is not an accurate reflection of Islam or Muslims. You're talking about a religion that's 1,400 years old. It is not fair to judge it over the action of few people now in 2022. Know the history. And I told you again, for many than one, knowing the history will help you to do what? Predict the future. Because that's what Allah said. That's what Allah said. For those who lose hope, look at us Muslims, we're very unfortunate here. Yeah, you just came here yesterday. Some people lived here, they struggled, they were jailed, they were imprisoned. And they did their struggle, they never lost hope. Until a time when there was bathrooms for white and bathrooms for black. From the same people, someone came and he became the highest position in the White House. What did you think? They didn't work hard for this? They did work hard for this. So turn to yourself and see what you're doing. Don't just give up hope just because you broke off the leg. You got a ticket because you had an illegal price. Oh, we're very unfortunate here. I just had a parking ticket. If you want to do something, everything, you need to work hard for it. Nothing in this world is inherited. It is what it is. This is a universal law. 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to do 1, 2, 3, 4 to get 4, 5, 6, or 5, 6, 7, 8. You do 1, 2, 3, you get 4, 5, 6. It is what it is. You do nothing, you get nothing. It is what it is. You do nothing, you get nothing. You work hard, you get the results of your work. You don't work hard, you sit still. Don't blame, that's it, don't blame the circumstances, don't blame history, blame yourself. You blame yourself. Some people struggled way decades ago, and they earned the way of life. Now, can anyone from this brother who told me he thought that his name was the N-word, of how many times he was called the N-word in the streets? Can anyone say this word now? Can anyone say the word now? Wallahi, if the highest ranking position said this word on TV, he would resign in the same day. He would be forced to resign if he said this N-word on TV. This is how they earned their civil rights. And this is what, at least the least thing we can do is to remember them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us their success and their flourishing, inshallah. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. واشرفنا بامرنا وثبت اقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. قوموا لصلاتكم يرحمكم الله. ان الصلاه تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر ولذكر الله اكبر. الله يعلم الصلاه والسلام.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Change your lights. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. التائبون العابدون الحامدون السائحون الراكعون الساجدون الآمرون بالمعروف والناهون عن المنكر والحافظون لحدود الله وبشر المؤمنين. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ما كان للنبي والذين آمنوا معه أن يستغفروا للمشركين ولو كانوا أولي قربى من بعد ما تبين لهم أنهم أصحاب الجحيم وما كان استغفار إبراهيم لأبيه إلا عن موعدة وعدها إياه فلما تبين له أنه عدو لله تبرأ منه إن إبراهيم لأواه حليم. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.